Hello everyone, welcome to the sixth video of Cypress Automation Crash Course in Coders Camp. So in our previous videos, we have covered writing our first test case, integrating IDE with Cypress, and what are the basic run commands we can run in our terminals. So today, this video is going to be the real coding video where we are going to step into the coding part of Cypress, and we are going to cover the basic commands that are used to interact with the web pages today. So here are the list of commands we are going to try today, and by the end of the video you will be learning the basic commands needed to interact with web pages and construct a small test that runs to test your website. Hope you're as excited as me, so let's dive in. So we are in our Visual Studio Code. Let us create a new folder and new JavaScript file to start our coding part. So yes, I have created a new folder testing under which testsuite1.javascript is my JavaScript file name. So before getting into the basic comments, let us understand the basic structure of our code has to be and then move on to see the Cypress comments. So most of you would have already familiar with Mocha, Chai frameworks. If not, it's okay. So our test is going to have a describe. So describe is going to take two arguments. First argument is a string. So as I said in my previous video, you can compare describe as a test suite. So inside which you can have any number of methods that has functionalities to test. So as I'm going to have a describe, I'm going to name it as my first test. So it is going to take the second argument, which is a function which has open and close curly braces. So this is the basic structure we are going to start with, and inside it, inside describe, we are going to have an it. So again my it is gonna follow the same syntax, that is two parameters. The first parameter is gonna be a string and second parameter is a function. So in my first parameter, I'm gonna type my first command, comma, again a function. So you can either put function open braces and close braces, or otherwise this is a short denotation of a function to be. So this is the basic structure. So here inside describe you can have any number of its. So each hit will be having a different name so that we can identify which test case been running. So as of now I'm removing the other two its. I'm going to deal with my first it first of all. So this is the code block where you'll be having the actual code for your testing. Inside it you can write any code that needs to be testing your web page. Here is the basic structure. So before the basic structure, something like import in Java, we are going to use a / directive. There are a lot of / directives. Here we are going to use one thing which supports us, the auto completion of code. So reference inside that types is equal to Cypress. So this / directive will help us to support the TypeScript, which is the auto-filling or auto suggestion of code. So we have covered this thing already in our previous videos. So there are other things that you can put inside describe is hooks. So if you know Selenium or familiar with Selenium already, you understand what is hooks. So here the hooks we have is before each, before, after each, and after. So if you see before and before each are the functions where it is again going to be following the same syntax as describe and it, which will execute every time before every it. So if I'm using before each, the code inside this block is going to be executed before every it we use. The same way if I'm going to use before, which is going to execute once before executing any it. Or let me ignore this as of now, we'll use it once it actually needed. So I'm just letting you know these things are available. So the first command we are going to cover is cy.visit. For testing any website, the first step is to launch the website. So cy.visit will help you to launch the website you are going to test. So it is as simple as that. So I'm going to launch my blog site. So I'm going to copy this link, and inside the braces in double quotes I'm going to give the link and save it. So to run, so I'm going to use the test runner for execution, because as we are seeing the comments I'm going to make so much of changes, so it will be easy for me to update my tests and run. So yes, it is open. So we have created a folder testing and test suite 1. So yes, as we have given, our website has been launched, and you can see the URL here in the web address bar, and it is showing visit this web address. So yes, our first command is successful. So the next command we are going to see is contains. So here in the web page, if you want to check any element is present or there, or you can point at any element, you can use contains, and contains will have the text which is on the website. So if it is other testing frameworks like Selenium or something, you need to find the path, or if suppose this website is running on any iframe, you first need to enter into the iframe and then had to look for the XPath or any object. But here, as Cypress runs in the actual browser where your website you are testing, and they both run in the JavaScript, as HTML will have interactive objects in JavaScript, they both run in the same domain. It is easy for Cypress to identify any text or element in the screen. So for example, I just want to check my blog link, whether my blog link or text is there on the page or not. So I am going to simply type in the command cy.contains in single quotes blog. So I'm going to simply save it and see what happens. So yes, if you see, it has executed contains. Nothing had happened in the screen, but if you click on it, it is pointing at the link it is showing. We did not specify any XPath or CSS selector or nothing. It simply points at the text you have passed as the parameter. So what is the use of contains if it simply points at or finds the element? These commands are chainable. So chainable in the sense you can tweak it as you like. So once you find the element, you can check whether it is present or not, or you can click on it or type any text and etc. So overall, the contains command will help you to point at the elements on the screen. So the next command we are going to see is cy.get. Get is something which also helps you to get the object or interact with any element in the screen, but unlike contains, contains use a text which is appearing on the screen, but get will help you to get to the element's path. So in Selenium you might have used attributes like id, test name, link name, or xpath, etc. to identify the element, but Cypress used CSS selector in order to get the element's access. So most of you would have been familiar with any CSS selector. You can have any number of tutorials or videos available in internet to learn what is CSS selector. Cypress has provided few easier ways to get our CSS selector. So before Cypress, if we want the XPath or any selector for any object, we can go to our dev tools, and by default Chrome will help you to get the CSS selector by right clicking on the element and give copy, and copy selector would actually copy the selector of the element you click on. So for example, if I want to access forum link, if I click on forum link, you can see the attributes, styles, and ID, etc. So you can form your own CSS selector if you are really familiar with how to do that. If not, easier way is to click copy. Copy selector will actually help you to get the selector of any object you click. So the default option is this in Chrome, or you can use any Chrome extension to do that. Also in Firefox you can have Firebug, which help you to get the XPath or selector of any object. But here in Cypress, there is another option which is open selector playground. So this will actually help you to get the CSS selector of any object in your screen. For example, I'm just clicking on it. So I want to click login here. So I'm going to click on this object. So this will show the CSS selector of this particular object. So for example, if I want to get contains instead of CSS selector, you can select this option as well and try out. So if, for example, I'm trying log in, it is highlighting this element as I typed in. So you can check your own CSS selector by writing inside this text box and verifying it here. So here I want to get the CSS selector of forum. We can use that easily by contains forum, that will also help. But here I want to show you how we are going to select CSS selector of this. So here it is showed the ID of the forum link. So we can simply copy this command itself from clipboard and go to your Visual Studio Code and paste it. So once you paste it, it has given you the complete command of clicking that link forum. So here this also will identify or point at the element. It has nothing to do with the element. It won't click or do anything. It just point at the element. So I have saved my test. And now if you see, again this get command is pointing at forum link, but it did not do anything to the element. It just pointing at it. So the next command we are going to see is click. So here we have used two commands, contains and get. Both are used to identify an element in the web page. So you can use either of them to click or interact with the element. So here I'm going to comment this and use contains. You can use this as well, and this command also chainable. So I'm going to chain click command. So this will actually point at the blog element and then click on the link. So let's save and try. So yes, it has clicked the blog link so that the page navigated to the next screen and showing the blog page. And if you hover over, yes, we have clicked and then it is showing page load and then the other stuff, that is the request and response, since it is moved to a different page. So yes, click command is over. So the next command we are going to see is should, where should is generally used to assert an element. So any kind of assertion you can perform using should, and should also has so many options to explore and test your web page. So I'm gonna comment this line as this will navigate us to the next page. So I'm gonna do a should. So once you entered should, you can see there are 242 different types of should you can use, that is different parameters and different functions with should you can perform. So as you click on this, you will see each function's implication and meaning, so you can read and try it. Otherwise, I'm just typing in single quotes and you can see all possible options you can type in inside should. So here we are not going to cover everything but few important ones. So the first thing I'm going to check is have text. So which actually says go and search for this element, and this element should have the text forum. So as we have pointed at the forum link or forum element, we are going to check whether the text in that link is forum. So I'm going to save it and try. So yes, as you can see, it has automatically pointed or printed the assertion, which is in green color, which means the test is passed. So in this case, if we are changing the text, it should fail because it is testing the actual text available in the screen. So I'm going to change the spelling of forum, changing my capital F to small f and save it. And let's check whether the test fails. So yes, the test failed as the spelling of forum is wrong. So it is showing time dot 4000 millisecond to have forum, but the text was capital Forum. So yes, it is failed with appropriate assertion message. So should will actually help you to perform assertion. So let us try few more comments in should. So we have seen have text. So the next thing we are going to see is have attribute. So this will actually help us to test the attributes of that link. So here it is pointing at the forum link. Let's go to our web page. So here I'm going to check what are the attributes available for forum. So I'm inspecting this element, and here you can see class, style and ID is available for forum link. So I'm going to first check the style. So for example, if we have a requirement to test whether the given font or size or color is the actual matching with the text available in the screen. So I want to check the style of that particular link. So let me copy this, and I'm going to go Visual Studio Code, and here after have attribute I'm going to pass the second parameter as style, because there are a lot of attributes and which attribute we want to test we have to mention. And as the third parameter I'm going to pass the value. So here it checks whether at this link or this element have the attribute style with this value. So let me save this. So yes, a test executed, and you can see our assertion has been passed. Here it says assert this particular element should have style, text alignment, right, line height and 31 pixel. So it is passed, which means the style alignment we have checked is exactly matching with the elements alignment. So you can tweak this should with so many variables and so many options that, for example, you can type in should and you can see n number of options available, like have css, have data keys and etc. You can use this to assert anything in the website you want. So the next command we are going to see is viewport. So here if you see in Chrome browser where our test has been executed, the default resolution of this screen is going to be 1000 into 660. So even if you minimize the screen, the screen, the resolution did not change. It stayed with 1000 into 660. So if we want to test our application in different resolution and different devices, this viewport is going to help us. Testing our application with different resolution and devices has always been an out-of-box requirement where we need to look for different devices, simulators, etc. to test our site in different platforms. But here, with the help of viewport, you can do that very easily. So I'm going to type this command in front of all comments because I want my screen to load with that resolution. So I'm going to give cy.viewport. Let me give a random resolution 1200, 720. Let me save it. So yes, you can see it has been changed to 78%, that is 1200 into 750 as a new resolution. So yes, it worked. So now the other option we have with viewport is the device. So you can either specify one of them to test that in that resolution. So I'm going to give same viewport command. So inside that, if you give single quotes, you can see the option of devices you can test your application with. So here is the list: iPhone 6, MacBook 11 and Samsung Note 10 and etc. So I want to test, okay, let it be iPhone 7. I want to test it in my iPhone 7. So let me save this and now open your Chrome. Let me save it again. Sometimes the log site happens this way. So yes, you can now see the screen resolution has been changed automatically to 375 into 667, which is actually the resolution of iPhone 7. Now, as my site is not compatible with mobile applications, so this is quite scrollable and stuff. few sites have been designed specifically for mobile applications, so that will be an exact fit for this resolution. You can try out those kind of sites to do that. So yes, now we have seen viewport and how we can test further with viewport. So the next command we are going to see is URL. So before going to that, let me align my test a bit so that you will get a better understanding for coming code. So let me not disturb this it, let it be. I'm gonna write one more it. Let's say it is testing URL, and it is gonna take a function as parameter. So inside that I'm gonna write my second set of or second block of code. So before that, I'm gonna write a test before each block which help me to launch my URL every time. So I don't want to test it on my iPhone 7 anymore, so I'm removing this command, and let me put this cy.visit before each command because I want to launch my website for every block of code. So I'm going to write a before each. So just take a function or a string comma function as its parameter. So I'm gonna put launch every time as my name, and I'm gonna implement the function. So inside that I'm gonna paste my cy.visit so that this before each will launch my website every time before executing my it. So here in my first it has a check for forum link whether it has the attribute and assertion, and in my second block of it I'm gonna write my URL thing. So now hope this alignment is better than the previous one. So here the command is cy.url. So this is a simple command which is gonna hold the URL of the current page you are in. But if you want to use this URL, you should have or you should learn other commands. So simply you cannot save this element. For example, like in JavaScript, const URL is equal to this and printing this will not work. Because like other CY commands, this command is also chainable but not assignable. This is a wrong approach. So here is the URL which actually hold the URL of your current page. So here I'm going to add an assertion that my URL should include the text. So here my URL is actually having coded. So I'm gonna launch my page and check whether my URL has the words code it. So simply I'm gonna launch my URL once before this it block, and it checks whether it include this part of path in the URL. So let me save it. So it has launched. So if you see now it is showing two different commands. So my first command and testing URL are the names we have specified for our each. So here our first it is having my command, and second it is having testing URL. So now inside it, if you see, before each has been executed, that is before that it has executed and launched our site, and after that expected this URL to include code it has been passed. So simply we have given only URL. This is the current page URL, and it checked whether it has coded and assertion is passed. The same way in our previous test it has executed the before each. So you can tweak this cy.url further. We are going to see that in this video. So the next command we are going to see is log. So here generally we know log is used to print something on the console. So let us try just printing some random text. Testing URL log. Let me save it. So here under testing URL, you can see there is another section log. This is what we have printed in our. So log is simply used to print anything. There is one more log like console log. Testing console log. So let me save it. And if you see, there is one log you can see in the steps after launching the URL, but the console log will actually print your details in your console in your browser. So here if you see, there is a line testing console log under your console. So these two things are used to log your values or anything you wanted. So how can we tweak it in the way we want? So here I want to print my URL. So we are going to see how we are going to print this URL. So before that, I'm going to give it dot only so that this helps to execute only this test. I don't want to execute my first command it because we have done with that. So I want to execute only this block of code, so I'm giving it dot only. So here inside I'm going to print my URL. So before that, let us try printing it with just cy.log cy.url, but this won't work. This won't actually print your values because these Cypress commands are asynchronous. So it execute it first and then go back to the second command which is inside, which means it will not be printed. So before actually seeing how it works, let us also print it in a proper way. So as I said, the commands works in asynchronous way. I'm going to give cy.url dot then. So this then function is actually help us to yield the answer of our previous command. So here if you see, enable you to work with the subject yielded from the previous command. Here the previous command is cy.url. So whatever we got from this command, this then will work on that result. So this then will gonna take a function. So I'm gonna write a function. Inside that I'm gonna give value. Here the value can be the user defined name. This can be data or URL or anything you like. So here I'm specifying it as value. So here in then function we got our cy.url or whatever output this cy.url returned in the variable value. So now we can use this value to do anything. So here I'm going to print this value. So let me save it. So now, so as I said, it just executed the testing URL, but it did not execute the previous it, that is my first command, as we have used only. So here as in the code, it has displayed testing console log in our console. Also our general log we have printed. After that, we have printed our URL directly in the log. So in this log, it has printed this as object 5. So it is not actually a direct string or something. It considered that as an object. You cannot see that actual text. But after that, we have used log to print the value using then function. It has actually printed the URL of our current page. So this is the function of log and console log. And also we have covered then function. So now we are going to see is timeout. So I'm gonna not disturb this it and write a new it so that it will be clear for us. So I'm writing a new it name testing timeout, and it is also gonna have a function. So inside this I'm gonna write cy.contains log, and I'm gonna add an assertion have text blog. So this is going to check for the blog link and check whether the blog link has this text. But instead of blog, I'm going to change the spelling of blog by giving double L, and let me save it. So if you see, it has searched for blog, but it couldn't find that. Here there is another message saying timeout retrying after 4000 milliseconds. Expected to find the content BLLOG but never did. So here we did not add a wait time to our screen to check for that element, but by default Cypress had added 4 seconds to check for that element. If it cannot find the element, then only it had failed the assertion. So here if you go to your test runner and settings, inside configuration, you can see the basic configuration details of Cypress tests running, the browsers used and Chrome security and etc. Here if you see the default command timeout is 4000 milliseconds. So here in Cypress everything will be mentioned in milliseconds. So the default command timeout is 4000 milliseconds. So you can override this and change this time according to your program you run, whether you can increment it or decrease the time. So I am going to change here. Let me go to Visual Studio Code. So here in this contains, I'm going to put a timeout. As these things are specified in millisecond, I'm going to give 6 into 1000, which means 6 seconds I'm going to check. So far it had defaultly used 4 seconds. So I'm going to do a 6 seconds wait for this BLLOG. So let me save it. So it is checking for that BLLOG text in the screen. And now if you see timed out after retrying 6000 milliseconds. So yes, we have increased the wait time for the object to be present on the screen. So this will be helpful when you are checking for any element to load and stuff. So the next command we are going to cover is type, which is one of the essential commands now because every web page is dealing with text boxes, sign-in pages and registration pages and etc. So all of them need the type command to input the values in the text field. So here I'm going to write one more it which is going to test the typing. So let me name it test type. And I'm going to remove only here as I want to execute only this test. So here in this type test, I'm going to first check for any text box present in my site. So here in this page, if you click forum, you will see a search text box here where you can enter stuff and search for details. So I'm going to get use of this text box. So I know how to go to forum by using contains. So here I'm going to get the search box CSS. So Cypress gives the easier option. So let me copy this. So here I'm gonna put cy.contains forum.click, and I'm gonna search for my text box and type, let us type welcome. Okay, it should be in single quotes. Yes, it has clicked and typed welcome as well. So if you see in screenshots, it has typed welcome. So type is not only used to just type that any text inside the text box, also you can have the keyboard commands. For example, after clicking welcome, I'm gonna hit enter button. Here you, instead of enter, you can use any supported keyboard keys. For example, you can use control C and etc., which will be helpful for us to enter the keyboard commands. So now I'm gonna click enter. So let me save it. So yes, it has actually clicked enter. We could see that. So yes, this is the function of type in Cypress. So the next commands we are going to see is pause and debug. If you have seen the previous video, you must be familiar with pause command. So I'm going to use both the commands here in this it. So let me type cy.pause, which actually helps us to pause the test and resume it manually. Also cy.debug will also be used for us to debug our options. So let me save and try this. So I have opened my developer tools because to debug we need to have our console. So now our test is paused and did not execute further. So it is waiting for me to hit the resume button. So once I hit resume, the next code is to type in our search box. So I'm going to hit resume. So you can see it has typed and debugger is opened for further options. So here in this console you can see the details of our debugger, that is after welcome and enter. It is waiting for us to debug the code. So this is the use of pause and debug will actually help you to debug the code, but you can tweak debug in any number of ways. That is, debug is chainable. You can add this with contains or get command. As of now, I guess this is enough for a basic testing purpose. So the final command we are going to cover is wait. So this is basically let us wait for the seconds we specify. So here instead of pause, I'm gonna give a wait time, cy.wait, and we have to specify the value in milliseconds. So I'm gonna give 6000 milliseconds, which is 6 seconds. So let us save and try. So here if you see, it is actually waiting for 6 seconds. Once it is done, it is further executing the code in our it. So yes, this is the purpose of wait, but not only just the waiting time, we can also tweak it in very different ways. That is to wait for an object to appear, to wait for an element to click, and etc. So we are going to see that further in detail in future videos, but as of now, I think this is enough for a basic testing of any web page and web elements. So we have covered basic comments that are needed to test any web page. So here in my blog, I have specified the comments we have covered in this video. Also, if you go to Cypress documentation under comment section, you can see all Cypress comments that you can check and work it on your own. So this also includes the comments we have covered in today's video. You can check out other few comments you're interested in. For example, you can go for a right click and reload and clear and etc. and check for how it can be worked out in your own way. So yes, hope this video is informative. So look for more videos on testing in Cypress. So if you like the video, hit like and subscribe. Thanks for watching the video. I'll see you in next video.